Welcome to Motherhood Aligned and Assigned, where we help guide mothers from symptoms to solutions.
We're Dr. Serena Coffman and Dr. Veronica Schiltz, nervous system specialists helping families discover the missing link in their wellness journey.
Join us as we translate complex health challenges into simple, actionable solutions for you and your children.
Because your family deserves to thrive,
not just survive.
So if your baby is favoring one side, you've probably been told it's just a tight muscle. Do some stretches, try tummy time, wait it out. Hopefully they'll catch up eventually. If that sounds familiar, this episode is for you. So what most pediatricians don't tell you is that torticollis isn't just about tight muscles. It's about stress and subluxation in your baby's nervous system. I like to think of it, why are those muscles tight in the first place? They're involved, but there's something telling them to be tight. We want to get to the bottom of why. So while you're waiting and stretching, that tension is affecting more than just their neck. It's interfering with digestion, development, sleep, even immune function. And so we're going to kind of chat about a couple stories. Dr. Serena has some fun stories to talk to us about how this plays out with, the different modalities you can address torticollis with and how chiropractic care can help get to the root cause of it.
Yeah, so there are two babies that have been under my care with a very similar story. So I'm going to call that a pattern. So I don't always call it a pattern, but for this one I am. So both had pretty stressful births. One of them C-section, one of them just a pretty stressful exit vaginally. And they both had PT, so pediatric PT, to help unwind that, favoring that one side, right? Because they were kind of cinched down on that one side. Preferred nursing on one side, all of that. And the PT got that balanced, but then as they were progressing and trying to hit milestones, like rolling and crawling, they were stuck. And what we noticed was when we did our scans, deep down, that nervous system stress and tension was still there, right? So we got the muscles to stretch out and to balance for the PT, but we didn't take care of the root of why that had happened in the first place. And so once we got that nervous system tension unwound with chiropractic adjustments, they started rolling both sides. They started crawling well. I mean, the crawling took a little bit, right? Because they had to have time to integrate the rolling, which I still worked with the pediatric PT in integrating those adjustments well. Because she was who referred them to me. She was like, wait a minute, there's more to the story. And also, they started sleeping better and pooping better and doing all the things, right? And they just took off in development once we got their nervous system out of its own way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just have a question. So the listeners by now, if you haven't heard us talk about insight scans, go back and listen, right? Because we've got 3 scans. They do different things. I'm curious, what finding in those scans, I'm sure you took 2, right? What made you say, okay, there's actually, here, mom and dad, here's the finding on this scan to say, there's actually a deeper layer here?
There is still a lot of tension in their neck, but then also their thoracic spine. So they couldn't actually, one of these babies, so okay, you've worked on the neck a lot, and now they can't even extend to do tummy time. Hated tummy time. And okay, no more torticollis, but now she hates tummy time so much and can't push up. And so that's when the PT referred to me, and she couldn't extend physically. And so her TL junction, so where her thoracic spine with the ribs meets her lumbar spine, there was a hiccup there. And so we had to remove that stress that was paired with something in the neck, right? So we had to pair those two adjustments to release those subluxations. And actually, her torticollis, showed its flags a little bit again as we were doing that, because it had to unwind through the whole process, which told me deeper nervous system stuff is going on, right? So we had to, sometimes the nervous system, just as happening to a few patients of mine this week, the nervous system has to retrace its tracks of how it got to the tension in the first place for it to process it and completely unwind it. But the scans, definitely, mom was like, I have spent so much time and money at this PT, who was incredible, by the way. She's like, why is this different and more? And then the scans that showed her is well, it's still there, and this is how I can unwind it. And then you can use this PT to integrate that so she can move through her milestones well.
Yeah, I feel like I've said this so many times this week with just new patients and all kinds of stuff. The nervous system is really it goes through things in phases. And so I was just talking to a patient about how we have like a toddler who was behavioral, and then all of a sudden when she got through the behavior, she started crawling again as her play. Like she just gravitated toward games as she was crawling, and the mom was like, I cannot get this 4-year-old off the ground. And it's like, well, that's great. Like, don't stop her. She's really integrating the crawling that never happened. And so I think it's really cool that you get to sometimes naturally just intuitively do it on your own, or we get to partner with providers. Like we have a PT that we just found that I'm really excited about, because we get to partner with them to say, okay, here's how I can unwind, here's how you can integrate. But unfortunately, most providers don't know how to unwind. They just know how to either integrate or add stress to the body, where that's good stress, right? Because sometimes it could be good stress. But we have providers who are adding things. We don't have a lot of providers who are taking things away like we get to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not a bad thing if they don't know how to do that. That's fine. Right. It's that they don't refer to collaborate. That's the part.
Well, I think they don't even know where to refer to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do think that's the goal of this podcast is, and that's kind of what I've been shifting my mindset on, is I think at its core, if every provider knew exactly what we did, how we did it, it'd be like no brainer, I would hope, for the majority of them, right? There's some of them that do now. But the ones who are truly in these professions, as we are, to make impact and grow, would, I think, if they knew about us. And so I think that's why I think things like this podcast is super cool, is we get to kind of spread the word and be like, yes, there is I almost said a second option, but actually a foundational option to go through first. And then after that, you'll get a patient that's already primed and ready for whatever work that you want to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Something else I see is that pediatricians won't even often refer a torticollis case to a pediatric PT. So that pediatric PT is like, what the heck? This is what I do. But they're just like sending mom home with stretches. That's probably a lot of our listeners' experience if they're working with torticollis for kiddos. Like, pediatricians say, like, here's these stretches, they'll grow out of it. But underneath those tight muscles is subluxation and misalignment and fixation, which is loss of motion. And then that neurological interference, where the stress mode gets stuck on, keeping the muscles then contracted, right? Because then they're in fight or flight. And so it's like trying to get your baby to relax while the stress alarm is blaring, right? So that's where the chiropractic comes in. It's like they're trying to okay, relax muscles. It's like, no, we need to get them out of the fight or flight, and then you can tell them whatever you want, and it'll stick.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I tell parents, like, imagine if we were at a rave right now trying to talk about your kid's care plan, right? Like, you wouldn't listen to me. You couldn't listen to me, right? You couldn't hear me, and that's exactly what your kiddo is going through. So yeah.
And so, how a lot of moms ask, like, well, how did the torticollis get there? And I think the number one thing is birth interventions like C-section, forceps, vacuum, a long labor. So all of that, like high stress on the upper neck of baby. Or I would also say, like, pushing when you're not ready to push, right? So
I was gonna say I would actually take it a step before that and say mom was very in a sympathetic dominant state for labor to create that intervention. It's like I almost feel like it's an emotional and a physical stress period in one. Because I just think anything in the neck is very emotional, but it's also very physical. So yeah, torticollis it's all of that, what you just said. And then, but like, why is that there? Because mom is in a sympathetic dominant state to not relax enough for labor, which is kind of what causes all of that. But yeah.
So then baby's mirroring mom's nervous system and added physical stress with birth in those cases. Yeah, because a lot of my torticollis moms and my torticollis patients, they're pretty anxious mamas. I will say that. Yeah, are they anxious because they're trying to help their kid, or are they just anxious before that even? So something to keep in mind. And it's baby's mirroring, and then baby gets stress added on, so then her gas pedal gets stuck on, and they're entering a world already dysregulated. And so common signs of that are preferring one side when they nurse, hates diaper changes,
laying down on
their back, yeah. And then also just diaper changes are require some adaptability of it's gonna be a little cold for a minute, and I'm gonna be obnoxious for you, right? So it's this is a big change. And this is the most inconvenient thing of my world. That's how Duke was for a little bit. He's like, this is the worst thing it could possibly do to me. How rude.
I was playing, and I was attracted.
We were cuddling. What's going on? But like that paired with, like, you can just tell that they are just like disturbed on a physical level, very uncomfortable, and that uncomfortable no matter the position, right? And this is kind of where the perfect storm begins. Birth trauma leads to subluxation, like stress in the body, which leads to tension, torticollis, and then dysregulation is on top of that, right? So you can't turn your head right, you can't nurse well, you can't move through your milestones well because you're stuck to one side. If you can't do those things, there's lots ahead. I think we have a different show on that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting to know, and what I love to do too is pair the connections of, like, you know, I feel like the fun, one of my favorite parts about our job is seeing how torticollis and constipation are literally the same thread. Because even when you were saying, you're like, there's a lot of stress in the shoulders, there's a lot of stress in the mid-back. Well, if you look at that lovely picture you have behind you, if we were to look at the symptoms with it, you would see anxiety and stress is in the shoulders, and digestion is in the TL junction, which is like that mid-back area. And so, you know, like I said, the fun part about my job is getting to be like, you actually don't have to work on your gut, and then you're the torticollis, and then the plagiocephaly, if that's there, right? The flattening of the head, and then you don't have to change your formula or your breast milk all the time. Like, let's start with this foundational piece first, watch how much those improve, and then whatever is left is what you get to go then work on, if there is anything left, right? Like if you after we know we're moving better, we're turning symmetrically, we are, doing all these things, we're pooping, we're sleeping, we're comfortable, and then it's like every time you eat dairy, then there's still kind of fussy. Okay, well, now we know, right? Whereas before, you kind of come in thinking these are all separate issues when they're really just one and the same conversation that your baby's trying to have with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also, if there's tight muscles and in the neck, there could be poor drainage from ears, so they have ear infections. And then we have breathing issues like croup, RSV, like restricted airway drainage. We already talked about delays, sensory processing, right? So if there's a lot of stress in the upper neck, that's a lot of noise that the body is giving the brain, right? So that proprioceptive body to brain noise, so then more sensory information coming in is just so much harder to process, right? So we can see a lot of sensory processing problems, especially if it was just stretched out and then like, oh, you look balanced now, and then the deeper issue is never resolved. And then ADHD, hyperactivity, later childhood are like the same, in that same bucket. Mm-hmm. Yeah, plus it's so hard when mom's like, well, I haven't had this a lot, but they're like, well, they look balanced down, so like the PT said come in, but I don't know, I think they're fine. It's like, well, let's get scanned, quick and scan, please, and just make sure. Because I just want everyone to have the happiest nervous system. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't want you to come back in 5 years and like, wow, they have ADHD, can you help me now?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Always know it doesn't. We don't grow out of things, we grow into things.
Yeah.
So I feel like we go over insight scans pretty frequently, maybe every other episode or something. But one thing, I got asked this yesterday, and I thought it was a great question. Maybe I can ask you instead of going into scans, or maybe we'll do both. But someone asked me, I've been through chiropractors. I've seen chiropractors my whole life. What makes you different? And so I was just curious how you would answer that. And instead of just talking about the scans, talking about like why this specific kind of chiropractic, right? Because there's literally at least for me, there's a chiropractor on every corner, right? So, I mean, why this kind of chiropractic care instead of another one?
This is my favorite question, actually. So what makes me different is one, the scans. So the scans show me how adaptable your nervous system is doing. So that would give me an idea of how long the stress has been there. And it shows me where the stress is and what the priorities are. So that's huge. It breaks down into like, if I feel long spine and I would love to adjust 5 things, The scans help me interpret which two things are the most important thing to adjust, and most likely together to unwind that tension, kind of like wringing out a towel, like unwringing that towel. And that's huge in that if I didn't have these scans, I would be a chiropractor that adjusted all 5 of those things because they would all feel equally important to me. Mm-hmm. So the scans really help me differentiate how to be the most efficient and effective adjuster. Because then they will also tell me, is this a lot of stress? Like, is there a lot going on? Like in the neck, for example, is the most common. And so my technique then needs to be more gentle to remove that stress. And then down low is there some shutdown and where I need to add more oomph and input. So 2 things. I'm adjusting less, more efficiently, to not overwhelm your nervous system with too much information. And I'm also I don't hold on to one technique, right? So the scans help me differentiate what technique I'm going to use. I have lots of tools in my tool belt. Am I like more oomph, like the cracks you see on TikTok, right? Like that's like sometimes I use that tool. And then sometimes my tools are not going to ever be TikTok famous because they're just not sensational, right? It's so gentle and touch-based. And it blows people's minds. They're like, that was it. That was the adjustment. I'm like, yeah. And this is why trust the process. And they come back for the report of findings. They're like, I felt so much going on. I felt my neck processing so much after that adjustment. I was like, let me look at my notes. That was a really gentle adjustment. They're like, yeah, I didn't even think it did anything. I was like, case in point, right? So that's the basis of how I'm different. I have more information on these objective-based scans to provide the best adjustment for you. And care plan.
It's good. And care plan, yes. And how often? Yeah, I say something very similar in that it's like every chiropractor is affecting the nervous system, whether they know it or not. They just might not be doing it as efficiently and effectively as this technique essentially, or this, I should say this, certification allows us to. And so I basically told him, I know where to adjust. I know what to adjust, when to adjust it, and how to adjust it because of these scans and because of the extra training that we do. So yeah, that's beautiful. And so for the listeners, for the ones who've never been to a chiropractor and they're like, how, which one, why should I choose this office? And for the listeners who've been going to chiropractic and they're like, why should I choose this office? It just kind of shows you that the extra training, the extra knowledge, the extra tools that we have isn't that we're saying this kind of a chiropractic is better. We're just saying that the approach is a little bit more efficient, a little bit more effective because we're listening to your nervous system first and not just listening to, the training that we've gone through in schools and all those stuff, right? Like, it's a combination of listening to you, listening to your body, seeing your body and what it's saying, and then of doing with that information what we need to get you the best, most optimized results. So. Yeah,
that's something I emphasize a lot too. Like, I'm not letting a machine entirely dictate your care, right? There's still a humanness and an instinct that I'm going to use in the adjustment, but the scans just help me really dial in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, just some encouragement to the moms listening. I would say you don't have to choose between painful or irritating stretches and nothing, right? There's a third option, and there's one that works with your baby's nervous system and not against it, right? Another really brief story is a mama of a baby who was really struggling, I would say colic, couldn't get comfortable, couldn't sleep, all these things. They wanted him to do these stretches, and she's like, it was just not worth it. It just made him so mad that we just can't do it. And she's like, I just let it go and stuck with chiropractic, and he's so much better, just purely chiropractic. And now he wouldn't even tolerate the scans. Like, you put the ear clip on his little ear, just like gentler than a clip-on earring, folks. You can't even tell it's there. Screams his head off. Just like hated me for the I don't know. If he knew profanities, he was screaming them at me. And now his most recent scan, not a peep, and mom could probably go in and do those stretches and they'd just be so much more effective because he just wouldn't be so worked up and distraught about it. So there's that third option of and the best option of getting your baby's nervous system online so that they can unwind, and then all of these therapies, if necessary, are just so much more effective and helpful. Okay, so if this is interesting to you, click the links in our bio. We have some links to PX docs, so you can find a doc who does this near you. Or if you're in Boise, or where are you in Iowa? Des Moines?
Ankeny.
Ankeny. Iowa.
Years.
Yeah, you probably follow us on Instagram. You could exactly map us out or Google us. We would love to serve your family. We would start getting you scanned, knowing exactly where to adjust, and providing you with the most specific care plan, like detailed for your kid, to get them to unwind and heal as they were designed to. Yeah.
Amen. Dear Lord, thank you for just the ability and wisdom and discernment you've given us to serve these families well. Thank you for the way that you are guiding families into our office, and the way that you are using us as these vessels to provide healing and, integrate these things really well. We thank you that we are doing this for you and for your kingdom, and that we are bringing in other providers who are able to give us just well-rounded experiences for our families so that they can thrive in the most optimal way possible. We thank you for all that you're doing. We love you. We honor you. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on Motherhood Aligned and Assigned.
We hope today's episode helped you connect the dots in your family's health journey.
Remember, this is where nervous system health meets motherhood wisdom.
Until next time, we're Dr. Veronica Schiltz.
And Dr. Serena Coffman, supporting you as you nurture your family's well-being.
Because when you're aligned, everyone thrives.